Hi folks, welcome back to The Delve. If you're listening to this, you've probably had at least one moment this year where you've looked at American politics and thought, how is this the best we can do? The candidates get louder, the ads get nastier, the stakes feel higher, but the choice on the ballot often feels strangely narrow. This isn't an accident. It's the product of a system that rewards polarization, safe districts, and parties talking to their base instead of the country. And if we don't like the outcomes, at some point we have to stop only arguing about the players and start talking about the rules of the game. That's why we're revamping this conversation with Andrew Yang. You may agree with him, you may not, but in this episode we dig into structural ideas that are bigger than any one election. Ranked choice voting, open primaries, nonpartisan redistricting, and what it would take to actually give moderates, independents, and new coalitions a real shot. We record this before the latest round of political chaos, but listening back, it feels even more relevant now. If you're frustrated, this isn't an episode about despair. It's about where the levers for change actually are. I'm Chalin, and this is The Delve. Back in 2016, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell refused to call a vote to confirm Barack Obama's nomination to the Supreme Court, Merrick Garland.
I think it's safe to say there will not be hearings or votes. I think it is also safe to say the next president, whoever that may be, is going to be the person who chooses the next Supreme Court justice.
We all know what happened next. Trump won. He appointed Justice Neil Gorsuch, followed by sexually aggressive, beer-loving Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Both were confirmed by a Republican Senate.
Yes, we drank beer. I liked beer. Still like beer. We drank beer. The drinking age, as I noted, was 18, so the seniors were legal. Senior year in high school, people were legal to drink. And we drank beer. And I said sometimes probably had too many beers, and sometimes other people had too many beers.
Later, just days before the 2020 election, Justice Amy Coney Barrett was confirmed by a Senate chaired by the same Mitch McConnell who, with these three appointees, officially cemented his legacy as one of the most divisive and consequential leaders in recent history. A lot of people, myself included, were rightfully very angry. And while he certainly set a new standard in audacity, he didn't invent hypocrisy in partisan politics. In fact, he may have been marinating on a grudge that dates back pretty far. You see, in 1987, when Mitch was a blossoming young senator, age 45, and elected just 2 years prior, the Senate rejected Ronald Reagan's nominee, Robert Bork. Two of Nixon's nominees had been rejected in 1970 and 1969. Before that, the last rejection was in 1940. At least Mitch wasn't alive yet for that one. Whereas they were, Senate rejections had been carried out by Democrats over the last half century. Through it all, Mitch was watching. Mitch's ruthless commitment to his conservative agenda makes him a very effective champion of the right, but still, not a very popular one. He has a 29% approval rating in his home state of Kentucky. 29! But the GOP tactician has had the job of Kentucky senator since 1985. He has never been seriously challenged for a seat. At 81 years old, declining in health and widely disliked by his own constituency, he's remained one of the 70% of uncontested candidates around the country. Because he's been such a Republican stalwart in such a reliably red state, no one dares to run against him. This dynamic keeps many disliked politicians in place all over the country, as the majority of Americans are voting in safely blue or safely red districts. Over 80% actually. And when a district gets a little too purple, boom, gerrymandering.
With representatives who come from districts that have been gerrymandered. They've been gerrymandered to be safe seat districts, which means if you're a Republican in a Republican safe seat, there's no chance the Democrat's going to beat you. If you're a Democrat in a Democrat safe seat, there's no chance the Republican's going to beat you. And what that tends to do is make it so those incumbents are focused almost exclusively on the even more extreme version.
Not getting primaried,
Yeah, not getting primaried. So if you're a Republican, you're afraid of being primaried by an even more conservative Republican. If you're a Democrat, you're afraid of being primaried by an even more liberal Democrat. And so that dynamic takes an already polarized American Congress and makes it look even more polarized. So it's a really critical problem to figure out, what do we do to reform the system to make it so that kind of gerrymandering doesn't happen? A lot of ideas out there about this, but I wonder if you've thought about this in the list of 400 issues you've actually given us a policy position about.
Well, I couldn't agree more that gerrymandering ends up favoring incumbents in a particular way, and then it also, unfortunately, leads to more polarized policies, because then you're just afraid of the most extreme element of your party trying to challenge you instead of trying to appeal to the middle in that district. And I know that happily that there are some groups working on this problem. I don't have anything innovative to add except to say that to the extent that we can try and pull back some of the redrawn lines to something that is more along with historical norms that would lead to a more demographically or ideologically diverse place, like we should go in that direction as fast as possible.
That's Lawrence Lasik, interviewing Andrew Yang in a town hall. In a safe district, incumbents look to the extremes in their parties so that they don't get primaried from the left or right. This, coupled with the fact that only 10% of the country's most politically plugged in and often very partisan even vote in primary elections, is the roadmap for extremism in our congressional halls. But get this, Gallup polling in 2023 showed a record 51% of people don't actually identify with either major party. Many of us vote along party lines, but more than 3 in 4 Americans believe that our differences aren't so great that we can't work together. There's a term for this, the exhausted majority. In our two-party system, the party in power overturns the past administration's work while trying to pass their own legislation. The other party does everything they can to block the first, while successfully campaigning on the current woes and stagnation. Instead of change, progress, unity, peace, the pendulum swings, passing power and passing blame. The same elected officials, some of whom have been serving in the Senate since before I was born, argue the same talking points, retreating farther away from one another and a solution, pointing their fingers and raising their voices with every step back. Frustrating. But is there another way? Democracy can be reformed. In fact, it must be. The founding fathers wanted it to be. The political scientists agree, and Americans are desperate for a different reality. Let me share a couple of ideas. Ranked choice voting. Instead of voting for the lesser of two evils, you could order the candidates according to how much you like them and want to see them in office. If your first choice doesn't win a majority, you're not throwing your vote away. It goes instead to your second choice, and on down the line. This would allow you to vote third party without sabotaging your second choice. Another idea is open primaries, where the entire state participates in the candidate selection process. This means that minority parties in safely blue or safely red states or districts have a say in the kind of candidates that will likely win the general, adding a little counterweight to extremism. All right, to confess, these ideas aren't mine. They're the platform of Andrew Yang's Forward Party. I've been in the Yang Gang since the beginning, and I'm a huge fan because he talks about the world as I know it, one with a deepening income inequality that doesn't need to exist in such a wealthy country, a world that is grappling with climate crisis, a world with AI. Also, I just think Andrew Yang is the best. Andrew Yang is a former 2020 Democratic candidate for president, serial entrepreneur, and political pundit. He's co-founded a new political party that intends to shake up the system and fight polarization with democracy, reform, Forward Party. Not left, not right, forward. If you want to learn more about the Forward Party, I'll put the link in the show notes, but for now, enjoy my conversation with, and I'm so excited to say this, Andrew Yang. Okay, we're live. Andrew Yang, thanks for coming on the show. How's it going, man?
It's great to be here. Let's delve. Let's do it.
I love that. I want to start this off. You ran for president in 2020.
Yes, I won. I'm beaming in from the White House right now.
What made you do that? Like, why did you do that?
I ran for president because things weren't going well and I thought I could help. And for me, the guiding force was that I believed AI was going to arrive, and change a lot of things. And that the progressive automation of American jobs, in my view, had driven Trump into office by decimating manufacturing jobs that had been in Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, states like that.
Yeah.
And then AI was going to eat a bunch of other jobs. So I thought I'd come on the scene and say, hey guys, fourth industrial revolution, it's real, and we should transition to a more human-centered economy, which I led with universal basic income, $1,000 a month, renamed the freedom dividend because it tested better with conservatives. So the goal was to pave the way for a vision that would address unnecessary poverty and suffering, because in my view,
we all just saw the debate between Vice President Harris and Trump, and you've actually been on a debate stage as a primary candidate for president. What is that even like?
Well, it's different in a primary debate as opposed to one-on-one. And I wrote an op-ed. I mean, I debated Kamala 5 times. I made 7 presidential debates, but there's a far cry between standing there with 8 or 10 candidates and having the time divvied up. And it's kind of hey, let me try and get some points in because you're going to just move the mic to someone else. And that was particularly true in my case, honestly. I mean, the moderators weren't exactly like, hey, let's spotlight Yag. It was like, hey, let's see if we could give Yag the absolute bare minimum without looking like total jerk-offs. So one-on-one, Kamala versus Trump, it's like a very different animal. And I admire Kamala's performance. I mean, she was well prepared and executed brilliantly, but it is different. One of the things I will say too, I mean, I made 7 debate stages and it gets more normal as you go. The first time you're like, what is going on? The first time, even the stage directions are bizarre where they're like, okay, step forward. And now we're going to take 100 million photos of you. And it's so awkward. And you're waving to no one in particular. So awkward.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you know how the candidates are looking out and like recognizing people and waving to people?
Trump always does his point thing.
The truth is you have like lights in your eyes and couldn't see shit. And so you're just like pretending that like you're making eye contact with someone because it's super awkward. Anyway, so the first time you're like, whoa, this is bananas. But then I would say by the 3rd or 4th time, you start getting into, at least in my case, into a bit of a groove.
Right. And you've always been so forward looking. Democrats, we're still talking about fracking. Trump is still talking about mass deportations. You were talking about AI back in 2019, 2020 on the debate stage. Most Americans kind of just brushed it off. They were like, what's that? What? Huh? And now it's completely changed the world. Is this why you started the Forward Party, to kind of be more out front?
Yeah. So I'll give you an example from the debate. How many times did AI come up in the debate? I think it was 0 or half or something like that. And so right now you have a political environment where you don't need to address the realities on the ground or technology or whatnot. You just need to try and eke out your win by appealing to various constituencies and groups with various symbols and cultural touchstones. And so I started the Forward Party because I said, you know what? The incentives of this system will prevent us from actually solving any of the biggest issues of this time. So poverty is my passion to try and alleviate. And I was like, is this political system going to alleviate poverty? Well, let's see. It's had decades and decades, and GDP now is up to 76,000 a head or something. So at this point, we ought to be able to meaningfully address gross poverty. It's like, so why are we not? And I concluded it's like, our political system actually makes it so that if you did address poverty, you'd probably pay a price at the polls in various ways. And you can put AI there, you can put climate change there, you can put immigration there, you can put education there. Like at this point, if you try and solve a problem in the 2-party system, you probably reduce your own job security because you worked with the enemy, you were ideologically impure, you're going to piss off the base. And I did give a TED talk on the subject too about like why the incentives are so bad. And so then I concluded, okay, if you're going to change the incentives, so check it out. Here's some math. The worst possible number of parties you can have is 1. I think most people can see that would be a problem. The second worst is 2. And then the third worst is 3. And 3 would actually improve things a lot from 2. And so it's like, okay, let me see if I can't improve this dynamic. And the argument I make is, look, if you have a third party like the Forward Party, your downside scenario is that it puts pressure on the 2 legacy parties to actually get something done. Because right now in this system, it's like, if I don't get something done, well, it's their fault. Just send me money. Like I'll eke out another one. But by the way, and some of the stats I use in the TED Talk, you've got a 15% approval rating for Congress right now and a 94% reelect rate. So most of our elected officials are completely safe and immune from any popular influence. So they just raise a bit of money and life goes on. And if we get poorer, and you can see that because Americans have by and large gotten poorer, like life has gotten less affordable for a couple generations now, and that's one reason in my mind why you have someone like Trump who's able to rise to power. So that's what the Forward Party is about. I wish that we'd been around when you were running for office, Chalin, because I dare say you might have been a Forwardist. But we are starting up youth chapters at universities. Right now, there's a Young Forwardists organization. And if people want to improve our lives, in my view, it's going to take grassroots movement saying, look, this 2-party system is going to dilute any progress and we have to do something different.
Yeah, it's so funny. After I lost, one of the first people to reach out to me was one of the folks from the Forward Party. And I was like, oh gosh, this is so interesting, but I'm done with running for office. But I love it. I want to talk a little bit about not so much candidates, but people. When you're meeting voters and people, what are the issues that they come to you with? What are they trying to talk to you about? This episode of The Delve is produced on Chalin, the AI platform my team and I built to power shows just like this one. If you make a podcast and you're tired of juggling editing tools, noisy audio, and scattered files, Chalin brings everything into one place. It cleans up your sound, speeds up your edits, and helps your show run like a real studio operation. If you're a creator or producer, you can try it at chalinai.com. That's chalinai.com.
Well, this is one reason why I think something like Forward is so vital, in that the average American, very good, decent. And their concerns are shared by people from any background or certainly any political alignment. So what are they worried about? Hey, why is it my kids are not going to be able to move out of the house and afford a home? Hey, why is it that the cost of my healthcare keeps going up and up and is driving me crazy? Hey, well, why is it that I feel like my future is more tenuous and life generally is less affordable? Hey, why do I feel like my voice doesn't matter in the system? Like if someone comes to me, I've had thousands of conversations with conservative farmers in Iowa and moms in Harlem and college students in New Hampshire. Like across the board, there's a lot of agreement on the issues and the frustrations. But then again, like the solutions get distorted through this funhouse mirror of the current political system. And then the conservative farmers in Iowa are trained to say, you know why I'm upset? It's because of those people over there, like whoever that is. And then you go to the other side, it's like, why are you upset? It's like because of the folks in rural America or in red states. And if you were to get those people all in the same room, they would get along fine and agree on 70 to 80% of things. Yeah, that's like the funny part of it. I want to ask a question about straddling the 2 worlds. The 2 worlds of, we need Democrats to win in November, but it also wouldn't be a bad idea to have a third party. How do you straddle that? Yeah, so people probably know I've endorsed Kamala Harris because it's obvious, and I think Trump is noxious and terrible and a terrible leader and corrosive. And this isn't some kind of weird equivalency. It's like, like people who are like, they're both full of it or something. I'm just like, look, I mean, you're going to have problems. But Trump's like an accelerant to many, many bad things. Now, I think that there are ways that you can actually accomplish 2 goals at once. And I think some of your listeners are in Pennsylvania as an example. Sure. So we have a guy named Eric Settle who's running for Attorney General in Pennsylvania. He's a very experienced hand. He worked for both Governor Tom Ridge and Governor Josh Shapiro. So he's pretty much as down the middle as it gets. And his argument is, hey, if your attorney general is meant to enforce the law, maybe you want someone who doesn't have a partisan jersey on. Maybe you want someone who's just actually straight up the middle. It's a reasonable pitch, especially from a guy who's run 150 lawyers when he was in government. So he's like a very credible guy. And what we're doing in Pennsylvania is saying, get out and vote for Eric Settle for Attorney General if you want an independent. Yeah. By the way, if you goose turnout in that race, I'm going to go on a limb and say I doubt many Eric Settle voters are then also going to pull the lever for Trump. So you can get a couple things done at the same time. The same thing is true in a place like Nevada, which is a swing state. There's a guy named Greg Kidd who's running for Congress as an independent. His opponent is traditionally unopposed Republican member. Wow. And so it's like, hey, get out and support Greg Kidd in Nevada. Like that could be a twofer. I've got another one that's overlooked right now. There's a guy named Dan Osborne who's running for Senate in Nebraska as an independent. Again, his opponent is a traditionally unopposed Republican. Nebraska is a red state. If you ran a Democrat in Nebraska, it's a loser. Dan Osborne is a Navy veteran, a mechanic, an independent, and he's right now tied with the Republican incumbent.
Oh, wow.
And by the way, he's pro-choice.
Wow.
So if you'd like to see another pro-choice U.S. senator, you can either spend a gajillion trying to get Ted Cruz out of Texas, which I'm totally fine with. Yeah. But I'm going to suggest that Nebraska is a much cheaper place to compete, and you probably have a higher probability of succeeding. And one Senate vote is as good as another. Yeah. And so, right now, are Democrats piling behind Dan Osborne in Nebraska? No, they're not. Should we be? Yes, we should. So if any of those things click with listeners, check out Eric Settle in Pennsylvania, Greg Kidd in Nevada, Dan Osborne in Nebraska. And one of the dirty secrets of this system right now is they say, oh, we have to defeat Republicans. We have to defeat Republicans. Republicans are unopposed in most parts of the country. It's not like Democrats are showing up in Missouri and being like, let's do it. They're not even trying. Yeah. And so if you want, you can create choice and competition in places like Nebraska if you go in a direction like Forward is going.
Yeah. How important are local races?
Well, local races is where the big opportunities are. I mean, the fact is, there are 510,000 local races or so, and a lot of them are uncompetitive or uncontested even. Right. And you can make a difference in them. You don't even need to live where the race is, though it's better if you do. But Forward is endorsing dozens of candidates around the country, and we have 40 elected mayors and state senators and city council members and others who've already aligned with the Forward Party. So one of the things I say to folks is like, people like, oh, third party, waste of time, never happened. I say, wait a minute. 510,000 elected offices around the country, and tens of thousands of them are technically nonpartisan. Most mayor's offices, technically nonpartisan, school board, technically nonpartisan, county executive, technically nonpartisan. So let's say you recruit 200, even 2,000 elected officials around the country who just raise their hand. Yeah. And we just did this. Jenny Arndt, mayor of Fort Collins, Colorado, said, I'm joining the Forward Party. Wow. Her constituents said, what the heck does that mean? And then she said, what that means is I just listen to you and no one else. And then they said, sounds pretty good. And then the mayor of the next town over, Will Karspick, said, wait, you can do that? And then he raised his hand and said, hey, I'm Forward Party too. So you could have dozens, even hundreds of elected officials saying, I'm Forward Party. You don't have to pass a law, don't have to raise billions of dollars. You just have to go to these electeds and say, wouldn't you love to stop apologizing for the nationalized ideological back and forth that make people hate each other when you don't want anyone in your town to hate each other? You just want to get stuff done.
Yeah. What are your big ideas for making U.S. politics better?
I think that primary reform is our main ticket out of this mess. Right now, you have this 94% reelect rate, in large part because most of us are irrelevant to reelecting our leaders. It's just the 12% or so who vote in the primaries. And those people tend to be really ideologically distinct. And so you wind up with two political parties that are catering towards folks who may or may not have terribly mainstream views. If you change that, then you have a chance, and that is changeable at the state level. There are 6 states this November that are considering changing their primaries to make it so that anyone can vote for anyone. Those 6 states are Nevada, Arizona, Colorado, Idaho, South Dakota, and Montana.
Wow.
Now, most people listening to this are like, that's a thing. By the way, these primary reform campaigns are going to cost millions of dollars. And so it's very high stakes because the people that are funding it are investors and they're like, hey, I hope this works. And if you watch my TED Talk, you'll see that they did this in Alaska in 2020. And it's why Sarah Palin lost and Lisa Murkowski won in 22. If you have a normal primary system, Sarah Palin is a member of Congress today, and we're all 3 IQ points dumber and sadder from having her on TV all the time. And then Lisa Murkowski would have been drummed out for her vote to impeach Trump. I mean, Trump showed up in Alaska. Trump actually bothered to go to Alaska to try and get her out. And it did not work because they don't have a primary in Alaska. Like, they don't have a Republican primary. They have an all-party primary. And changing the Alaska voting system costs $6 million. And what I argue is, like, that's the best deal you've ever heard of. You know, not that any of us on this podcast have an extra $6 million lying around, but the case I make is that, like, that's where the best investment is, because you're pumping hundreds of millions, even billions, into a dysfunctional political system. We're going to spend $10 billion beating each other up this cycle. And so my argument is, like, how much should we spend on fixing the underlying mechanics or the incentives? Probably $1 or $2 billion, if you could get there. The thing is, and I know some of these people, it's like people would much rather play politics than fix politics. And it drives me nuts. So that's what I'd like to see change.
What makes you hopeful for the future?
Talking to people like you makes me hopeful.
Oh, I appreciate that.
The fact that Americans, if you sit with them one-on-one, are good, decent people, like 95% of the time, makes me hopeful. I mean, the fact is, the people are much better than our institutions or our media, or certainly our social media, would have us believe. And the question is, can we break the stranglehold of our partisan politics and the media and the social media? You know, and that's a very tall order, because, you know, they've got the equivalent of billions of dollars to work with. But I sense that more and more people are catching on. More people are savvying up. And I dare say young people are going to be a huge part of that. And if you want to savvy up and start working on the real problems, please do check out the Forward Party and Young Forwardists. The two major parties do not need you. Oh, they'd love to have you just so they can airbrush over their stuff. But the major parties at this point are primarily financial organizations. I mean, honestly, they are. And so, you know, Forward Party is the opposite. We're people-driven and just want to make good things happen.
I love that. Last question of the interview. You're a very busy man. Who wins in November?
I must be honest with you, Chalin.
Oh, Andrew.
No. If you ask me on different days, like, you get a different answer.
Okay.
So if someone comes to me today, I think Kamala edges it out.
Okay.
But, you know, I might have a different answer tomorrow. I will say that first, I will be in Pennsylvania, Nevada, trying to help Kamala win, because I think her winning is mission critical. But the thing that makes me nervous all the time is that big picture in American life, our faith in institutions is declining. And fundamentally now, Trump is the burn it down, they're full of it, tear down the institutions guy. And Kamala and the Democrats are keep it going, things are all right, give us a chance, we're working on it. If you were to be facile, you'd do like the joy and hope thing. And right now, more and more Americans, unfortunately, are becoming negative and disillusioned with their institutions. And that to me strikes me as like an ongoing trend. And if that trend manifests itself in the vote in November, it would mean that Trump slightly overperforms. And that's one of the things that keeps me up at night.
Sure.
And I'm someone who, by the way, doesn't disagree with Americans who think the institutions are increasingly dysfunctional, out to lunch or out of touch, or, you know, just cater to big money. Like, I actually agree with that general set of complaints. And now agreeing with that set of complaints does not make me want to vote for Donald Trump. You know, but, you know, it makes me want to start a wholesome new political movement that just listens to people. But that's the thing that will make this a nail biter the entire way through November.
Yeah. I was telling you, I'm an OG. I'm an OG Yang Ganger. So happy to have you on the show. Thanks for coming on The Delve. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Such a pleasure. Keep on delving. And hopefully we'll see you in person. Yeah, let's go.
Let's do it. Many, many thanks to Kiani Ericayos for his production work on this episode, and especially for bringing my hero Andrew Yang onto the show. Thanks to Madison, head of production, and to Eli, Aaron, DeVale, and Javon on sound for their magic as always. I'm your host, Chalin. I'll see you next week. The Delve is produced on Chalin, the AI platform we built for podcasters. You can learn more at sellingai.com.